Hi, this is Drew Hall, Director of Convergence, and you're listening to Without Your Head.
All right, and welcome to the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neil.
This is Annabelle Lecter.
That would make me Terrible Troy.
And we are joined by James Schumacher, the creator of Inheritance, which we're going to talk about momentarily.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Very well, very well, very well. Now, for people not familiar yet, could you give them an idea of what Inheritance is?
Inheritance is a horror graphic novel series that revolves around an insidious family lineage and its struggle over a multi-generational struggle between a family as they struggle to control and end this really bad, insidious, I'm repeating myself, it's a multi-generational story of a family struggling to control its insidious lineage, and that lineage happens to be a great-grandfather who's been dead for 45 years. And it takes place between two timelines, 1950s and the 2015s, 2016s. And it follows a little girl whose nickname is Bean. And it follows her son in the 2016s as he begins to experience and see things. But at the same time, he has his mother committed to the mental institutions for seeing spirits. And then he begins to see the spirits while she begins to die of really aggressive cancer. And it's that struggle between a broken relationship between a mother and a son who's struggling to cope with his own sanity.
Now, I understand the story is very personal to you.
Yes, it's intrinsically me. Almost everything on the page, everything that's in there, is something that's come from my life. And the relationship between Sterling Normandy, the motorcycle mechanic, and the son of Bean, and is the relationship between my mother and I to a certain extent. Like, my mother, when she was really young, was raised in a family that was very paranormally active. And as kids, we were told about it and told not to kind of get near or anything like that. And then as we grew into adults, we began to experience the things my mother talked about. My mother would always talk about seeing spirits in the house, doors slamming shut, things moving in the house, lights turning on and off in different patterns. And it kind of evolved from that. So then in 2009, when my mother passed away, I was looking for something to do. So I shot a couple films, and then in 2013, after a film I had worked on, I had the idea for Inheritance, put it down into a script, sent it to my artist, and we both agreed at that point, this is the right time to kind of take the story of a mother and a son struggling to reconnect with each other during the last days. And it's still hard to talk about this now. Mm-hmm. You're still 6 years away from 6 years out from your mother's death, and it's still tough. Sorry.
No, don't.
Yeah.
2 days before my mom passed away, I got a call from her. And she's like, hey, I need you to come over and talk to me. So I come over and talk to her. And she begins to rattle off all these things that she was told. And a month preceding that date, she actually died in the hospital. And actually went to the other side, saw the thing, saw her parents. And during that last conversation with her, she was talking to me about things, and she was begging me not to quit filmmaking and writing no matter how hard it got. She's like, please don't quit. She's like, if you only knew what my father showed me, you wouldn't quit. I was like, okay, cool. And that was the last thing she told me. Wow. I told her I loved her, and I left, and 2 days later, a military man who his way of showing me that he loved me was to say, hey, you. He called me up and said, baby, and I knew right then and there that my mother, who was telling us for a month that she was dying, actually died. She had actually figured out when she was going to die. So Inheritance is birthed from that last conversation, but that last conversation is strung out over 9 books. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to tell a story that took my mother's essence and our love for horror and our love for each other and turned it into something that would terrify people, but at the same time, something that would punch you right in the gut and just pull you into an emotional story.
Would you say writing, something so personal and does that help you cope with her death, or does it also kind of keep it fresh since it's a lot of stories about her and inspired by her?
It's 100% my therapy. Both filmmaking and graphic novels and comics are my therapy. If I didn't have this, God knows what I'd be doing. It's my only way of communicating to people. I mean, so many people get into this kind of stuff because they want to be cool, or they fall in love with the idea of being a well-known artist or a well-known writer. But a lot of the people that make this a successful venture and a successful thing, it bridges and comes from their life. And it's incredibly tough because whenever I write, it's pulling from my own life. When I wrote Inheritance, and we're now, James Burton, my artist, and we're getting closer and closer to the end of the line, it's still brutal because I have to go back into these memories and rip them wide open just so I can feel the pain in order to kind of create the next steps of the story. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that pain is unifying. Pain and loss are the two unifying things amongst all humans, more so than love, because not all people fall in love, not all people will get in love because they want to be single, but everybody knows what it's like to lose somebody close to you or lose an animal that's become a family member. And that is what connects people. That's what connected me to my favorite film of all time, Forrest Gump, because at a very young age, when I was 12, my mother was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer, and they told her chances of living were really bad. So at a very young age, I understood the frailty of life. And then we saw Forrest Gump, and it clicked, and I just fell in love with that movie, and it's been my favorite movie. I swear my girlfriend Zara is probably so sick of watching it with me. She's like, we stop? There's only so much I can watch Forrest Gump on.
Along those lines, do you think sometimes that's why people like horror movies? Because there is death involved, and it can kind of, in a way, lighten it because you see so much of it in the horror movies?
Exactly. I completely agree with you 100% on that one. And that's the idea of horror. That's the idea of horror. And it's to put you into a situation that you've never really been in, and it allows you kind of that escapism to what would it be like to run from a slasher? What would it be like to live in a house that's exceedingly paranormally active to the point where it begins to harm your own family? That's the kind of stuff that people kind of love, and it gravitates, and everybody gravitates towards it, and everybody loves it. Mm-hmm. That's why horror, as they say in film, is the fastest and easiest sell for a movie ever. Because drama, great, perfect, cool. Everybody loves drama. Well, not everybody loves drama. People love drama. People love science fiction. People love action films. But horror, because it appeals to that primal instinct in all of us of fight or flight, that gets everybody every single time, whether it's the person sitting in the theater with their hands above their head or the person who closes the book and puts it away because they don't want to know more. It engages that. That's what I love about horror, and that's what I've tried to instill, and we really have instilled that into Inheritance. And that's what we get back from our fans. It's what we get back from everybody. We've had people tell us that they've shut the book. They wouldn't finish it. I'm like, that's the greatest comment. That's the greatest review for me. Mm-hmm. It's not the reviewers that are going, oh, this is great. It's the person who says they can't read it, but they'll go back and finish it when they kind of get a little bit of brevity to it, and they get away from it for a second, and then they come back to it.
Mm-hmm. Was Inheritance always to be a comic book, or did you ever think of writing it as a movie or any other type of a book or any type of other medium?
Ideally, it was. When I first thought of it, I thought of it as a graphic novel, like a long-form graphic novel, like 90 pages, 100 pages per book. I love that long material. And then James Burton, my artist, is an incredible artist. The guy's a genius when it comes to work like this. He's like, yeah, it might be too long. But by the time the first book comes out, it's 2 years after we started it. So then I was like, okay, let's think about this. And then once I looked at the structure of Inheritance, we broke it down. That being said, we're working on what we call, it's called like the Netflix model with like episodic kind of setups. And we would love to translate Inheritance into an episodic for like Netflix and Hulu. because Netflix and Hulu are very kind of offhand. They don't really kind of mitigate and tell you what to put in there and how to put it in there. They just make sure you don't do horrible things in it.
Right.
When if you try to go for a movie, you're really stuck with the beat structure of a film. You're stuck with 90 minutes is usually the time frame of what they want that actually sells. But Netflix and Hulu and the digital age is taking that and changing it for the better. And we're working on bringing Inheritance into that field.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, it started as comic book.
Well, I know that you actually tried to make the comic book cinematic, like a movie.
Yes.
And how do you go about that? What about it? Is it the frames? Is it the whole setup? Explain how a comic book is cinematic.
When I sat down with James for the first time and said, okay, we're going to do Inheritance, the first thing that came out of my mouth is we're going to do a very cinematic feel, which meant wide panels, and it meant framing that you've seen in amazing movies. And it meant a story that would slow down and that we would change how comic books are done. And ideally, that's what we've set out to do, and that's what we've done. Is in film, everybody, you're given a certain framing, and you're given a certain, like, a focal point, or it's a face. And you look at it, and then it's gone. And then the next cut hits, next cut hits, next cut hits. But in that, people interlay and build into their framing certain subtle imagery to kind of affect people. That's something that I haven't seen done really well in comics yet. So, like, one of my favorite horror films and still is, The Shining, by Stanley Kubrick, because if you pay attention to that guy's backgrounds, he's dicking with you the entire time, like changing placements of chairs that you don't even notice over a 5-minute scene.
We just read an excellent article about that. There was a great article talking about all the impossibilities of the hotel.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that was our starting point. I mean, my favorite part in that film was there's this scene where the family first comes into the Overlook and they're walking. And as they're walking, the camera's tracking with them, and they go into the office. Oh, sorry, not the family. It was when Jack Torrance was there first. And he's walking with a guy giving him a tour. The camera's tracking. You see people walking behind the room he's about to enter. And as he goes into the room, there's a window outside. And it's subtlety. It's subtle imagery like that tweaks with somebody subconsciously. So when we did Inheritance, there's this, it's a common trope where everybody does jump scares. They do, like, creatures. They do, they attempt to just jump scare you and get that easy, like, kind of thing. I'm like, let's do this brooding, slow-paced kind of horror that slowly sets in, and then once it hits, it's fast-paced. So you go from our panels, which are normally wide, and then you get to the fast-paced stuff, and the panels go small, and then you start to rapid-fire across the page as you're trying to figure out what this character's doing. And in film, they do it really well with audio and dialogue, is when they layer it upon layers upon layers. What we did with our lettering was we would rapid-fire the lettering, so you would have to struggle to figure out where the lettering is going, and that only takes place in the high-tension, the high-impact scenes, while in all the stuff preceding it, you understand where everything's at, how it fits in, and how it comes together. So we took it from that aspect, and it's worked spectacularly well. And we don't see that. We don't see too much of that these days. I mean, even in our panels, there are certain things in, like, the prologue issue and all the issues coming out where not that many people have noticed, but we have people who have noticed that there's shadows built into the darkness. There's words layered into the darkness to kind of just tweak the people's expectations on what's to come.
No, yeah, I've only read the prologue, but I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the books. And before I even knew about, that your intention was to make it cinematic, was some of the stuff I really liked was just a scene when the hands, when she's young and she's being pulled down, and it's like several panels of her trying to hold onto the step, over and over again. And I thought it really built up tension within a comic book.
Awesome. That's exactly what I figured out. When that first concept came into my head, I'm like, I'm going to do this. James Burton, my artist, was like, I don't know if that's going to work. And then he roughed it out. He's like, holy crap, that works. Because, again, it's something that comic books don't really do. But it's just all rapid-fire images, and you're just reading through it. And you're, okay, cool story. I'm like, I want something that, as you flip, you're like, holy shit. Because that hand to the girl is usually, because when you go to the Comic Cons, people flip through like, oh, we love this art, this is amazing. They get to the hand, they flip through the second page of hand, and they're like, we'll buy this. That's just to the point where that's where everybody goes, okay, you got it. So like, great, perfect. Mm-hmm. So it's a time long gone where people buy a book based on its cover and based on its first page because everybody flips through it. Mm-hmm. And if in 5 pages, 10 pages, you don't have somebody's interest, they put your book down and it never moves. It never goes anywhere. I just like the creeping intensity. It's like strip everything away from the reader and go, here's just the hands. As it's getting closer and closer to the edge. And you're just like, oh God, this is insane. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff I love to do in film. It's the stuff I love to do in comics.
Now, I know you mentioned film. You made some short films.
Mm-hmm.
You ever gonna? Would you like to do a feature someday?
Yes, actually. I would love to get back to feature. My last film was just the Festival de Cannes. It was called The Astronaut, and it was based on a moment in my life when my dad almost died. And I had this conversation with him in the ICU, and I'm like, I need to know, do you want to be kept alive? And he shook his head no, and I'm like, well, this sucks. And this image of a little boy in a plastic spacesuit, or a cardboard spacesuit, so to speak, standing on the moon next to his father, who's in a full-blown spacesuit, popped into my head, and it was like 2 months later, I sent the script to a couple of producer friends. They loved it. We shot it in 2014, and I just kind of went around, and we're at a festival called AOS, and it brought the entire theater to tears to the point where people were requesting that the astronaut win an award for it. Mm. So they literally kind of they made up an audience of choice award and gave it to us, and I'm like,
oh, well, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm like, that's crazy. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, and it's interesting, like, the dichotomy in my work. One of my good friends, Ford Austin, he's like, you're the only person I know that can go from a nice family drama where it deals with a little boy who's trying to get his father's attention to knockdown, drag out horror. It's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. But it's how I've created everything that I do. I'm like, I take everything from my life, put it into these situations, and that builds the bridges for everybody. Excuse me.
No problem. So, how can people find your short films right now?
Short films were actually, my website's currently being redesigned. I ended up getting hacked on it. I was like, yay! So we're redesigning it. Currently all my stuff is on IMDb. You can just search James D. Schumacher III. Do that.
Now, can you get the comic both the physical and digital?
Say that again?
Can you get both the actual copy of the comic book, and can you also get it digitally?
You definitely can. I'm more inclined to direct people towards physical sales because I like the physical nature of holding something.
Yeah.
But both books you can either download it through outpouringcomics.com, or you can actually order it and they'll ship the book to you. I love the fact that digital technology is taking off rapidly, and everybody's struggling to kind of figure out where they fit into it. But I really love the idea of holding something physical. But I still like physical CDs and not just downloads. Something about that is just awesome.
Yeah. One good thing though is people can find it digitally, and then if they like it, go on to get the physical copy.
Absolutely. We priced our digitals.
That's what I'm going to do.
We priced our digitals, I think, at 99 cents to $1.99. I can't recall exactly which one it's at, but it does serve as a very good way for people to kind of if they're at home looking at it, they can just kind of get into it, look at it more than just the first 3 pages of our previews on the stores. And we've actually had that happen where people buy the digital. That is great. And then that same person a day later will order the physical copy. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is really kind of cool. If people are doing that, then it's kind of that my job has been done right. I'm like, I absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else in my life with this.
Mm-hmm. So do people know when they go to buy this comic? Let's say they're standing there at a table and they're flipping through it, or just in general, do they know how deep it's going to get into the cancer aspect?
When people come to our booth, they usually will ask about inheritance. Mm-hmm. And we get this question a lot, but where did this come from? Mm-hmm. And it's usually from adults and all these kind of people go, what inspired you guys to do this? And we were explaining to a couple people one day that it comes from my mother and I's relationship, and that James Burton, my artist and co-creator, almost died of cancer in 2009. Like, to the point, 2 weeks after his wife gives birth to his kid, to his beautiful daughter, they say, hey, you're dying. And he's like, wow. What? That's not good.
Wow.
So it's funneling both of these. So when people ask us and we give the cliff notes to those stories, they kind of just look at us and they're like, wow. Now, is this going to continue in the rest of the stories? I'm like, absolutely. It's what's selling the book even more than just horror. Mm-hmm. Because, unfortunately, in this world today, there are a ton of people who are fighting cancer all the time. And it's horrible. And people look at inheritance, and they see two guys who have survived insurmountable odds and that are now creating something that's making waves and moving rapidly, and they think that they can do it too. So it inspires people as well. It's something we started getting. We're at SatCon, and first day went by great. We sold out at the beginning of day two, and right after we sold out, the news came up, and they were getting calls from fans, people who bought the book, going, you guys need to go talk to these guys. And so we're just like, what? Whoa. So it's a very touchy subject with people. Mm-hmm. But once people see that you've gone through it and it's not some scheme, they're like, great, perfect. Because we get that. With like, yeah, sure. Yep. You really have that cancer. Yep. And then James and I start rattling off treatments and how it went and all this stuff, and they're like, okay, then you know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Like, this isn't a scheme to us. This is our lives. It really is our lives. And all the stuff in the new books where you actually see the treatments with the mother, a lot of that was from James's memory, like how the rooms were set up, where people were placed. I may have directed some of the art, but James came and was like, I remember this happening in this room. I had 3 chairs here, a weird picture here, and then this. Mm-hmm. And it lends itself credibility to that, to the people that have seen previews of the new books that have gone through cancer. That reminds me exactly what it was like when I went through it. And it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned...
Go ahead. No, I said, so I think, I don't even know what it.
You'd mentioned how people can connect through grief and painful experiences of loss. I think, and I'm sure you know this and people know this, that it's a rare thing now to not have had a personal experience with cancer, whether you know a person or you yourself have gone through it. So, and no one really, I don't think there's nothing that's been made quite like this before. So, and it's not just a one-time thing. Like you said, it's a serial. So it's something that I think just really needed to be there. And it's amazing that you guys were able to come together and put it out. Because it's something people, without a doubt, it just needs to be there.
Yeah, it's like when we saw that nobody was trying to do this. Horror has been plagued with, in my opinion, almost like a that'll do attitude.
Yeah.
So everybody's just like, okay, cool, throw a couple creatures in, show the knife, stab some people, show a woman naked. Horror tropes. We got a movie. Let's go. That's not to say all movies and like that, like Convergence by Drew Hall, completely bucks the trend of what people are doing with horror and stuff. Even Matt Scott's with his upcoming film Altered, that even bucks the trend of what's like found footage horror and stuff. We wanted to do the same thing with this, and it's a gamble. Everything you do creatively is a gamble, whether or not you want to believe it or not. It really is. And we're like, let's do something. Let's do a horror serial story, a maxi series that gets you to fall in love with these characters more than most other horror books, movies out there. More than any of those, let's get people sucked into these characters, fall in love with these characters, connect to the person that's inside them, and then see exactly what happens when the story plays out. And let those people that have fallen in love with these characters, and wherever the chips may fall for those characters, let them engage and kind of build with them and stuff. That's why music is so impactful to people, because you identify music with a certain memory in your life. The majority of people do. Like, I hear Aha's Take on Me, and I instantly think of my mother in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and me in the front seat going to get pancakes at McDonald's. It's one of those first memories I had when I was a kid. It's the same thing we try to do with Inheritance, is give somebody a moment of reflection, a moment of like looking back at their life for a split second and going, I know that. I know exactly where that person's at. And then allows them to kind of like see a different situation, that if they're extremely lucky and blessed that the loved one that was fighting cancer survived, then they get to see the horrible side of it. So it's a horrible thing to say, but it's what horror does. It gives you that dark view of a situation. But at the same token, the people that have survived it, they get to see that same kind of situation. So that's what that's what we did with Inheritance. We sat down very methodically, figured out at what point things would happen to these characters, and then structured it out into a story. And it's worked. Like the Binding of Three, our new series that starts releasing in April, delves into that entire relationship between a motorcycle mechanic who's struggling to control his own life, his business as a motorcycle shop owner, his own sanity as he sees demons and spirits and stuff, and he's like, this can't be. And then there's a relationship with his mother, and at the same time, all that's happening, and he's reading his mother's journals. You're flashing back to the 1950s, and you're seeing a little 5-year-old girl being forced to confront a family, a horrible person in their family that is doing everything they can to destroy and kill that family. But the crazy part is that they can't see that person, and then that person has been dead for 40 years. And you're dealing with these two timelines and how they mirror each other, and how mother's childhood memories and childhood experiences mirror the son's experiences. And she's desperately, as she's dying, she's desperately trying to get him to pay attention to her, which is something he hasn't done his entire life. And it's that entire moment of will they, won't they? It takes the entire 9-issue series and takes it to a different level that no one else has really gone to. I mean, you get your horror, you get the stuff that's terrifying, but you get the stuff that wants to almost make you cry as you're like, oh. And there's things that are in the books that even James is like, dude, this makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine this. And I'm like, I remember this one time, it was just, and it's in the book, and I won't tell anybody to go see it, but I remember this one time I got into a fight with my mother, and I did the worst thing ever. It wasn't like violent or anything like that. It was a moment where she just wanted to connect to me, and I wouldn't let it happen. I was just like, you're nuts. Nope. And that moment haunts me to this day still. I mean, it was one of the only 3 fights my mother and I ever had in my entire life. Because my mother is my muse, and this is the woman that literally taught me everything about writing. Everything. I remember being a kid. She's like, all right, Saturday, Twilight Zone. I was like, cool. So I spent my entire Saturday sitting at the front of her couch, and my dad's at work, and we watched Twilight Zone all day where all my friends and the neighbors were outside playing sports.
Mom's cool.
Mom is very cool.
She's listening to Aha with you, going to McDonald's for pancakes, watching Twilight Zone. Mom was
We were
awesome.
also we were totally raised Mormon until my parents were like, nope. we're going to church, and my dad and mother are listening to like Black Sabbath. We're pulling into the church and listening to Black Sabbath. As a kid, I was like, cool. And the irony of it now is amazing. Like Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is my second favorite movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, my mother made sure, because I was the only boy, so they spoiled the girls throughout the year, all the stuff with Christmas. So when Christmas came, I got the Ghostbuster Firehouse, all the toys. I was in love with it. But the plus side to it is my birthday was like 4 days after Christmas, on the 29th. So I got the Ghostbuster Proton Pack. So I would wear this plastic proton pack with this orange foam thing coming out of the proton charger, and I would go to church. And the church people finally told my dad, like, sir, could you please stop letting your son wear his proton pack? He keeps chasing ghosts. And my dad's like, my son's going to wear it. My mom's like, don't you tell my son that he can't wear this here. So I wore that thing till it broke. It's just like, it's the kind of kid I was. It was just this, I was just this quiet, rambunctious little kid, which was an intriguing combination for my parents. Because you would get this kid that's like really soft, really quiet, soft, so to speak, to read all the time, and then on the flip of a dime, I'm like, hey, and I'm just really going at what I want to do, and it's crazy. It was fun stuff. There's a lot of things my mother and I did that I look back to now, and it becomes almost like a lighthouse for me. It's like, if I know that what I'm doing is eliciting that same emotion that I had as a kid, that same spark of creativity, I know I'm going in the right direction. So it's created these amazing signposts for me. That's something that I'm forever indebted to my mother, because not that there's people out there who don't have that kind of a relationship with their mother. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think of it. Especially as inheritance begins to expand and explode, and it's into Kevin Smith's comic book shops, and it's in Utah retail placements, it's in California retail placements, and we're working on Idaho, and it's selling in multiple countries. There's still that time where you're like, God damn it, I wish I can call my mother's phone, which is still saved in my phone, and tell her everything. That's a brutal kind of thing.
But not to get too emotional, it sounds like what she said to you before she went was that she knew that these things would happen.
She did. She was very, very attuned to the world around her, and that's where a lot of inheritance comes to. She would hear things and know what was being said and know what was happening in another room without being in the room. At this time, my sisters were standing inside of this hospital room. It's like the ICU or something. I was like 14, 15. My oldest sister, Carrie, went in. She just had tonsil surgery, and they nicked an artery, and then it popped. It was just pouring blood out of her mouth and stuff.
Wow.
So she was stabilized in the hospital. I'm outside outside of the room with my mom. My mom just sitting there, and she looks at me, and she looks at my dad, and her words were, "Get the fucking doctor." Mm-hmm. And she ran into the room, and my dad's like, "Come over here now!" And then they run into the room, and all of a sudden we hear code blue, code blue. Mm-hmm. And my mother knew my sister was like dying, and got in there and was doing everything she could to save my sister's life. I was like, holy God. So it was kind of, and it's something that took me a while to kind of come to terms with, is this phenomenon that people have where they're able to perceive the future, deja vu, whatever you want to call it, or they're able to understand certain situations that are coming at them. Is that stuff real? And for a long time, I was like, I don't know if it is. I don't know. I know I've seen stuff when we lived in New York and stuff, and talking to my mom, and when my mother was writing one of her books, I remember just sitting there listening to her, and all of a sudden the fire alarms in our house are going off, and they're going off in different orders. It wasn't just like, oh, smoke hit them all. It was like the far one hit, then the close one hit, and then the middle one hit, and then the far one hit. It's just this crazy kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So all of that, when you're still learning what the world is about and you're trying to decide what your worldview is enough that it kind of calls into question your own sanity as you begin to kind of experience the stuff with your mother. So that got incorporated into Sterling, and it just kind of went from there. I just, I don't know. It was crazy. It was, to this day, and that last conversation, she looked me dead in the eyes. Like, you know, when your mother is like really like wanting to get your attention, and it's not like, hey, it's look at me. I'm gonna kill you if you don't look at me. she's like, do not quit filmmaking or writing. And she literally almost sounded it out. She's like, don't quit. She's like, no matter how hard this gets, don't quit. I was like, cool, great. I will not. Don't worry. And then 2 days later, I remember sitting there and I'm like, after she died, I was like, dude, what? I had my own office as a filmmaker. I was working out of an office. And that year after her death, I called it my lost year because I stopped doing everything. I stopped pre-production on a film. I stopped caring about my physical appearances and stuff. And I was just like, screw it. What's the point? What's the point if the person who's given me the most support in my life is gone? And then true to form, she's like, she'd always told us as kids, she's like, you'll reach a point where even the worst things in life will have very strong prophetic implications on the rest of your life. You'll reach a point where you see it as something that's incredible. And it's not to say my mother's death is incredible, because it's still one of the most defining moments of my life, and it's still difficult to talk to. But the films and stories I had written before my mother died were just stories of like, oh, this is a cool idea. Let's see what happens. Let's play with it. Let's just go with it. And people just want to be entertained. They don't want to be touched. They want to be entertained. And then once I started taking, after my mother's death, and I started to get back into it, I'm like, I'm going to take all this stuff and turn it into something. Then everything started to explode. And it just kind of went from there. I mean, one of my films, Into That Good Night, is based off that last conversation with my mother and I, and it's being used in multiple hospice centers. And we gave it to them for free to have people who are watching their parents dying, to have them watch a film that would help them grasp the concept of letting go in your own time. I was like, that's insane. Again, it's just more of the stuff where you wish you was alive and you're like, I wish I can call you. It's insane. It's just an inheritance is that. It's that idea and that concept's just woven into it. I mean, James Burton, this is a guy who he sat in the chemotherapy ICU. I think it was in San Francisco, if I'm correct. He'll probably punch me in the face, metaphorically speaking, for forgetting this. But he sat there, and he was dying, and he's holding on to his baby girl. And he made himself 3 promises. One is that he would breathe. 2 is that he would live long enough to see his daughter graduate from kindergarten. And 3, he would live long enough to see one of his books go out into the market and become successful. He's accomplished all 3 of those. So this is a guy who has been right to death's door. He's like, cool. As he said, he's like, I sat down at a table with death. We took shots of poison Jack Daniels until one of us died. Like, I didn't die. I beat death. Like, cool, man. Like, tells that to everybody everywhere we go. But it's, again, one of those things that connects people to the material. That's how it is.
How did you and James meet?
This may sound really weird, but Craigslist. Okay, so here's how it actually happened. I was working on a zombie film with an old friend of mine. I was like, I need to get a storyboard artist. So I put an ad out for Craigslist, and James Burton arrived. I think he was like the 3rd person that was there. I was like, cool, great. So I'm sitting there, and he's talking, and I'm like, he didn't draw for 2 hours. Meanwhile, his wife and kids are circling and going to the store and stuff. We're just talking. And all of a sudden we got into Army of Darkness, and we started rapid fire quoting. And I looked at him like, I like you. Like, draw me something. And he drew like a big muscle bound guy punching his way through a wall with a zombie on him. And I was like, cool, great. And then he left. And 2 other guys came in. I just sat there, I was bored. And that guy's out. Have a good day. I'll call you, let you know. And after the second guy left, I called James, like, hey, you want a job? He's like, deal. I'll totally do it. And this was in 2010. And this was within the year after he almost died. So I was like, we kind of connected right at the time where 2009 was the worst year of our lives for both of us, where I lost my mother and he almost died. So it's like that created almost a kindred spirit between the 2 of us. And we just continued to do, he would storyboard all my films. And he would storyboard concepts I had for like a feature film I was working on. And then it just one thing led to another where we're both like, well, film's fun. You just have to get 20 people plus to work together to not only create your vision, but do it at a low enough cost that you can make money at it. Like, let's do a comic, and that comic happened to be Inheritance. It's a rarity to find somebody like that in this field. But when you do find it, you're like, great. You understand each other. You may get in a fight. You may want to punch each other in the face, especially him, where he wants to like punch me in the face, because there's pages where he'll send me artwork, and I'll review the artwork. I go through each and every panel with him and go, this is the idea I want for this panel. And then he takes it from there and explodes creatively with it, and it turns into something amazing. But there's equal times where I'm like, I need you to fix this, this, and this. And he's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, dude. I'm like, just fix it. We'll be good to go. It's a give and take, because he looks at the scripts and he'll go through it and he's like, I think that might be kind of weird. Like, no, well, he's like, it's going to be weird. Sure enough, one time, I was like, that's not weird. And when I put it to the second draft and I was like, that is weird. So it's almost like it's a brotherly relationship, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Now, I saw he actually did covers for Knights of the Dinner Table, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, he's he's awesome. Yes, when we first started talking comics, he sent me the Knights of the Dinner Table stuff. It's like, this is really good, dude. Because before all that stuff, he had just sent me like storyboards. That's all I'd seen, which are quick sketches. And I was like, cool, great, let's figure it out. And I once I saw the KDOT stuff, and then he sent me Damage Incorporated, which is his comic series that he's working on following Inheritance. And I was like, this is kind of cool. He's got a very distinctive style to him. And it's a style that is like not that many people share a style, but those are the best artists. Mm-hmm. Especially as a creator, especially as me, who's just a creator and a writer who finds an artist that wants to work together with my vision. You have to find the right person that has the mix of can create on their own style, but can create the style that you have in your head. And James is able to straddle that line phenomenally well. And that's why I love this guy. This guy's awesome. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to think of what's been done in 6 years between the 2 of us. Mm. And like he just did Vampire of the Lost Highway, which is another good take on like the vampire mythology by Don Smith. He just did, if I'm correct, I think it's a second book and as well as the cover for it. He did that. It's awesome as well. He just has a unique style of like being able to figure out the core elements of the scene, of the panel, and then figure out how to piece it together. And I love it. So you're a fan of Knights of the Dinner Table, huh?
Yeah, I I grew up a Dungeons and Dragons fan, and then I used to read the Knights of the Dinner Table. I used to have them in the old Dragon magazine. They would just be like, they'd have one page of that. And then when it branched off to be an actual comic book, I subscribed to that for years.
So James. I didn't get into Dungeons and Dragons that much. I played it as a kid, but I would more prefer to just write the stuff that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. But James is huge into D&D, where he's like he posts constantly about like being a dungeon or a game master, and he's like, just like, I have no idea what you're talking about, James, but I love it. Like, my buddy Andy Cadell, he's a wrestler up in Arena, and guy's awesome. He plays World of Darkness.
Nice, that's the best. He's got to play the first edition. The new stuff is garbage. I'm totally there. World of Darkness is the best. I like Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm out there too. You can pick on it.
Yeah, Andy is an awesome guy, but truth be told, in World of Darkness, he tends to build his wrestling personas. And he tries them out on us. I'm like, wait a second, are you wrestling me? He's like, it's my job. I'm like, thanks, Andy. Like, World of Darkness, they've shanghaied me. When I was staying with them for like a couple of weeks, like, you come here, and every Tuesday we have game night where everybody literally gets drunk. We play video games, and they play role-playing games, and I just forgot the name of the board game, but we played a board game. We played something of Waterdeep, Lords of Waterdeep.
Nice.
But they sucked me into World of Darkness, like, build a character, like, cool. And then once I realized it was just bantering with people, and it just kind of, it was a verbal storytelling, I got into World of Darkness. Like, this is actually kind of cool. I'm like, why didn't I do this as a kid? Damn it. I missed out on all the cool stuff.
What are you in World of Darkness?
I don't remember.
I'll know.
The last time I played, I was literally it was like 6 months ago, and I threw it together, and I was just like, cool. And then they made me play, it was 2 weeks ago. Then they played, it's like another game where we play as like superheroes, and I ended up playing as like a guy that was given the power of perception, and a guy was given the power of adaptation. Was it evolution? What was it? Oh, I forgot.
Was that the World of Darkness series for that?
I think it might be.
Yeah, that was very late in that.
Yeah, but I rolled like a 43 on like 2 of the D20s. And I ended up getting the power to understand and do whatever I wanted, like building anything and stuff. So I sat there and he's like, what kind of character are you? I'm sitting like 7 friends, we're all drunk, and like, I'm the asshole. I just sat there and I'm like, I'm going to wing a rocket at space while he's talking to that girl. I'm just looking at her like, you're a jerk, dude. I'm like, I'm role playing. one of our friends in that circle was like, good guys, we're going to totally like LARP. I'm like, you're never going to catch me in LARPing costumes ever. Like LARPing has to get to the point where it's like chainmail and amazing stuff before I'll even get into it. Like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, look at my foam shield and my foam sword. I'm going to come stab you.
Yeah, I became friends with LARPers a few years ago through work. And it was an experience to be around because it was 2 people and they were roommates. And they just had like foam things. And I went with one of the guys once. He had to go to the fabric store to get fabric to make packets, the magic packets that you throw at people. Like, I don't even want to be here. I'm pretty nerdy. My God. If I'm embarrassed by your nerdiness, it's
there's a litmus test. There's a point of no return for nerdiness. You guys are riding that line really well.
Did you see that YouTube video, the lightning bolt one? You must have.
I think so.
Oh man, it's pics online.
I can't like. My favorite thing about the cons are, and it's a little bit about live action role playing. But it's the cosplayers.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, that's how James and I talked to people. We're like, James knows a ton about anime. So his daughter's a huge anime fanatic. His daughter, at 4 years old, had a zombie preparedness kit, a backpack she built in case the zombies attacked, because he was storyboarding a zombie film with me at the time. So he picks out all the anime and stuff, and like I know when a fan of Markiplier walks by, or I know when a fan of like Neil Gaiman comes by to the characters and stuff. That to me is an interesting because it's LARPing, takes it to the point where they're like existing in the forest doing all that stuff, but something about cosplay is really cool, especially when people do it really, really well.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It's people spend, and so many of them do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's people, they're not hiring professionals. You're not buying a full made. Well, I know some people do buy costumes made, but a lot of the people that have the best stuff are making it all themselves.
Yeah, we this last con that was SatCon. It was SatCon. Alfred and Batman came up.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, cool, you guys aren't the Joel Schumacher Batman. I was like, your last name's Schumacher, aren't you? I'm like, very distantly related to Joel Schumacher. I don't want to be attached to the guy that put nipples in the bat suit. The guy who's apologized for Batman. He's like, I'm so sorry. I totally am. They wanted me to make a family Batman. But there's people that come up in Batman costumes, like that Alfred one was amazing. I was just like, it was like Tim Burton. Tim Burton's the guy walking up. And Alfred's got the phone. I mean, he looks up for a little platter cover, and it's the red phone. It's like, here you go. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of that, the best looking Riddler comes in and, and hits him and stuff. And it was part of this little cosplay they did. I was like, that's genius. Holy crap. That's incredible. And I get asked that Joel Schumacher thing so much. I was like, so you related to him? I'm like, nope. Very distantly, though. I'm like, he's probably like, I mean, I remember being a kid, and my dad's family, he's like a 3 times removed cousin from my dad's family. But then again, I'm like, yeah, nope, completely different. That's not to say people are going to hate me for this. It's not to say his Batmans were entirely terrible. And when I say that because they're nothing. They're that, but they're filled with nothing but puns. I love those movies for the puns alone. They're terrible.
Troy here does a great Mr. Freeze impression.
Oh man,
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I pull out your hand and see it freeze in my hand.
Can you please say "Get to the chopper"?
Did you hear that one,
Troy, to the chopper.
Troy, get to the chopper, Troy.
Yeah, he's on the spot. His Arnold Schwarzenegger is amazing.
He just sounds amazing. I love it. I love him. I had friends that could one of my friends, we used to be able to quote Forrest Gump. I had friends that could damn near quote every movie. Like James can quote Army of Darkness better than I can. I'm like, damn, dude. It's like, it's the greatest show ever. Greatest movies. Not the greatest TV show. It's the greatest. I love it. It's just all the guys that we work with, like Matt Gons, Drew, Troy Ruff, Ford, myself, James Burton, all these guys, Andy Cadell, we're the biggest dorks. You get us in a room, and it's like everybody's like, you get a bunch of guys who are all businessmen, filmmakers, graphic novelists, and you're like, oh, we're going to talk about work. We're like, nope. I think James and I this morning, we talked a little bit about Inheritance and then spent 20 minutes talking about Deadpool. I'm like, I guess we should work now. He's like, oh, but you have to think about it. Deadpool's going to be awesome. Like, it's going to be awesome. Like, we're endlessly debating Ghostbusters because his son is fanatic of Ghostbusters. And the new Ghostbusters, everybody's, they're screwing it over and they're because of women and stuff. I'm like, it's not because of women that I was apprehensive to it. Because I think all those female actresses are amazing and they're hilarious. And that director has made nothing but amazing shit. My fear was that they're just remaking Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Like, just extend the universe. Like, if it would have been easy to put Kristen Wiig, or however you want to pronounce it, as Bill Murray's daughter.
Yeah.
And then you just have an extension of the Ghostbusters series. I for one, am interested in it because it's the first Ghostbusters movie in damn near 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which is freaky to think about that. Holy crap, I'm getting old. I love Ghostbusters. I love the concepts of it. And it's like, there's little references in Inheritance to all the material that inspired James and I. There's little references in there to like Ghostbusters, to Army of Darkness, to, and there are very subtle references in there that most people won't pick up on, but they're there. It's the stuff that inspired us. But Ghostbusters, James and I talked endlessly about it. And then as a little boy, whenever I'm at James's house, he comes up and I think they're called those pop icons, or those little big fat dolls, or those, you know what I mean? Like little statues that have the big heads on them that bobble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He bought his son all the Ghostbusters and the Ecto-1. And I sat there and I'm like, can I see him? And his son was 5. I think his son's 5. And I'm like, can I have it? He's like, no. But it's Ghostbusters. I'm like, I love Ghostbusters. He's like, I don't care. He's like, Daddy bought me these are mine. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, no. I'm like, dang. I mean, James and his wife threw his son a Ghostbuster themed birthday party, and they made the Ghostbuster Ecto-1 out of Legos and stuff from the little Lego kit. And the poor little boy took it and then smashed it, and then spent a week with his dad going, "Can you build it again?" He's like, "No." It took him and his wife like 3 hours to build it. He's like, I'm retarded when it comes to this stuff. I can't do it. I know how to do art. This is what I do. I'm not a mechanical engineer. These are the instructions are Greek to me. So all that kind of stuff. When we his oldest kid, I just forgot her name for some reason. She's gonna beat me up when I see her. Camille. She read Inheritance. Mm-hmm. Because we designed it to be for kids if their parents let them read it. Mm-hmm. And she loved it. She's like, my daddy made this. I'm like, this is awesome. For James, it's like the biggest thing for him. Mm-hmm. Is that his kids can look at his stuff and go, I like this. I'm great. Because when we set out to do Inheritance, James and I had two things. One, that I wanted to continue my mother's legacy, her life, and the other part of that was give people who are going to chemotherapy something that doesn't patronize them, doesn't pull any punches, doesn't treat it nice, treats it exactly how it is, and lets you live within it. And James was that he did not want to build his children a tomb. He wanted to build his kids a legacy because he didn't want to leave his kids, because he had rough parents, and he's you guys are gonna, everybody will be able to ask him those questions and stuff. But his parents were rough people. And his dad was like a motorcycle outlaw. So when I did Inheritance, I'm like, we're gonna do motorcycles. He's like, damn, yes, thank God. So yes, because before he was doing horses, and he hates drawing horses. Mm-hmm. He's like, I hate horses. If you give me another horse, I'm gonna punch you. Like, cool, let's do a horse, I'm going to kill you. So it became almost like a way of him like adding more of his father into the book. So a lot of the motorcycle stuff is incredibly detailed. Like to the point where I'm like, okay, how's the panel look? And he sends it to me. And it's still in what's called pencil phase, which is just a pencil before anybody inks and shades and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he literally spent 3 hours designing the motorcycle just to get it right, so that people knew where the air filter was, where the batteries were, where the oil tanks. Everything. I was just like, damn, dude, that's insane.
Yeah, I remember seeing that character set on the motorcycle, and I was really impressed. It's very nice.
I love motorcycles. I love riding them. I'll have them again. But I'm like, ooh, he knew stuff about it. Again, this comes down to the fact that his other hobby is building cars. Mm-hmm. I mean, he built cars his entire childhood and stuff. And he built motorcycles with his dad because his dad was always on a bike, endlessly. And his dad was like a meth cook. He would run next to the back of a motorcycle. It was just all ass. So
He was
taking
in the
these-
Outlaws, you're saying?
not the Outlaws. He was an outlaw motorcycle.
All right.
It was
'cause
like a-
Outlaws is no good.
No. He wasn't part of the gang at all. He was just like one of those lone wolf guys that
Hmm.
just worked for everybody for the right amount of money. James will be able to tell you guys more of that.
He was like a Han Solo kind of guy.
Exactly. We'll tell James that. We're going to call your dad Han Solo.
There.
But it had an amazing impact on James's art because his dad showed up one day, like getting home from work, and he's like, handed a chalkboard. He's like, I'm going to go have a couple of beers with some friends or whatever. I don't remember the exact implications of why his dad left.
Mhm.
But his dad handed a chalkboard some chalk, so I want you to draw bikes and naked ladies. So James sat there as like a 9-year-old kid drawing motorcycles and naked ladies. And that's where he started to learn how to draw. And that was his genesis for being an artist.
Wow.
So it's
That's a nice
an inherent.
naked ladies too.
Again, that stuff just adds more to the reality of inheritance and all these characters and stuff. It's not just people we've never met. It's not just, this would be a cool person. It's, nope, that's me, that's you, that's my mom. These are how we interacted during these things. This is how the characters should get close to acting. They don't necessarily have to follow it, but it's more of an inspiration, something like a jump off, a start off point for everybody. And that's what it's made inheritance into what it is these days. I mean, we're at Outpouring Comics, we're right at the top for their top sellers. We just got invited to be guests at the first Marshall Con in Southern California. We're going to be at SatCon. We've got a ton of other conventions that my publisher is talking to, Outpouring Comics, that they're talking to in order to kind of just get us out there and stuff. I mean, we got we got placement in Kevin Smith's comic book shop, The Secret Stash in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
When we found that out, I must have jumped up and down. I was like, holy crap. Because it's that's like the holy grail of comic book placement.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kevin Smith is a comic book aficionado, and all of his guys, like Mike Zapsik, all those guys are huge comic book fans. Like Walt Flanagan, we have pictures of him with Inheritance. They're huge comic book fans. They looked at it like, yeah, we'll put this up, definitely. Like, what? Holy crap. This is insanity. I was in a comic book shop here in Utah. I'm staying in Utah with my girlfriend for like the next 3 weeks, and it's called Black Cat. And I walked in, I brought Inheritance, and it's like the day before I come in, I was like, hey, you guys like indie comics? And they're like, definitely. So I brought the comic in. The guy looks at the cover. He's like, this is really good. It's brilliant. Flips it over. And he's like, are you sure you're indie? Because this is incredible. He's like flipping through it. And he's like, he gets to the hands. He's like, I'll take 5. And he's like, that's all you got right now, right? I'm like, yep, I'll take 5 right now. I'm like, so I'm going to keep this one. I'm like, cool. Don't even have to pay me for it. You just keep it. And he's like, you bring Inheritance in, we'll keep stocking it. We'll keep putting it up. It's like, that's insanity. And because there's everybody in this field, you deal with like crippling self-doubt. You're like, are you good enough? Are you great? Are you awesome? And you compare yourself constantly to your heroes. And then it starts to happen, and you're just like, whoa, wait a second. This is actually happening. I remember looking at my dad, and my dad's just like, I wish your mom was alive. So.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild because you know that things would not have, you wouldn't have this, you'd mentioned something about this earlier. So you'd never be happy that your mom passed the way she did, but it is amazing that all of this has grown out of that experience.
Yeah, but without that implication, without that moment where we lost her,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be where I am now. But that's not to say I wouldn't trade everything I have now for another hour with my mother.
Yeah.
Because I would. I would kill to have one last conversation where I can look at her and go, your son's doing it.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's why James and I bond really well as creator and co-creator and artist and writer. Without his parents, without his cancer, he wouldn't be where he's at now. And his father is his greatest influence, still is to this day, because he's his dad. Just being a normal biker, a guy that just did it on his own, figured out what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, and worked with people to do it, and inspired James to figure out in a different way than his father how to do it. Because ultimately, I think that's what parents want, is they want their kids not to make the same mistakes they've been making. And do it in your own way. And James has 2 beautiful kids, a loving wife, and that's what it's become his impetus to keep going forward, because he doesn't want his kids to experience what he experienced. Just like I don't want my children to ever experience what we experienced, because when I was 12, we went from my dad making a lot of money to the chemotherapy treatments, and the chemotherapy treatments cost so much, and both a toll on my mother and my dad, that my dad had to take a second job just to keep going, just to keep us in a house. The copays were that high. I was just like, and I remember school years, my mother was crying. I would hear my dad talk to her I want to do more for our kids, but we can't right now. And it was when my mom had to take us shopping for school clothes at a thrift store. And my mom was just like, I can't do this. That was one of her biggest regrets. Even on the day she died, she's like, I could have done more for you kids. I'm like, no, you did perfect with what you did. For a woman that has cancer this bad, because she fought it 3 times. And the first 2 times she was gung-ho about it. She was like, I'm going to kick its ass. Fuck cancer. What are you going to do? 3rd time, stuff happened with her family, and it just ate her alive. And during those last 3 years, we watched my mother go from being this bright, peppy, New York woman to somebody who just could barely exist and was so sick of pain that she wanted to go, but she would hang on long enough to make sure that her children knew that she loved them and that she believed in them, and then she would give them advice on what to do with their lives. And I told her I would never quit filmmaking. I never quit writing, and I still haven't. And that's been the single most driving factor in my career. Everybody has their muses. James' muse is his kids and his wife. My muse is my mother. And I drive through every single obstacle and smash down everything in my way. And it's brutal, because you give up so much of your life to do this. You really do. You give up social life. I have the greatest girlfriend, the greatest friends that are still there with me. But when you start taking away time from all your other people, all your other friends and stuff, the people that truly don't matter will fall away from you. Mm-hmm. And that's literally focused my group of friends down to 7 people. And I'm like, great, cool, it's awesome. And my buddy Andy, the wrestler guy up in Reno, he's looking at me and he's like, I look at what you've done. Because we met when I worked for the federal government when I was helping my dad. And he's like, I look at what you've done since you've left that job. And he's like, it's inspiring me to do what I want to do. And he wants to wrestle. So I'm going to keep going. Practically every day I'll text him, go. Are you wrestling? Are you doing this? What are you doing? How are you going? It's driving him forward. It's the same thing I do with James, and James does the same thing to me when I have a bad day. You just have to, at a certain point, you have to have, I can't think of a good analogy for it. So, I love it.
What were some of the standout horror movies that you used to watch with your mom?
Say that again?
What were some of the standout horror movies you used to watch with your mom?
The Shining was one. I remember watching that. Then it was Return of the Living Dead. Then it was the original Halloween. And then it was, beyond that, it was a majority of it was the Twilight Zone. And it was like The Shining, Halloween, even though the Halloween had a slasher villain in it. I remember her sitting there telling me, she's like, that's not what's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Michael Myers that's scary. It's that you're in a house and you have no idea if there's somebody in the house that wants to kill you. That's what's scary. And I remember I would write stuff, like the Twilight Zone. There was Tiny Tina was her favorite Twilight Zone episode. And I was like, I hate you because I hate dolls. Like her and my dad would torment me. They made me watch Child's Play. And I was like, come here, buddy. And I'm like, cool, I'm 8 years old. It's a kid movie. And I'm like, great. She's like, it's not really a kid movie. It's rated R. It's going to be scary, but you're a Schumacher boy. You can take it. I'm like, cool. Terrified the piss out of me. I was like, holy crap. The doll that, like, now we're watching, I'm like, that's retarded. Just kick the doll. It's dead. But I went to sleep like a couple days after watching. I was still terrified of it because I was a really gullible kid. My mom and dad threw a doll in the bed with me. So I wake up in the middle of the night to that doll. I'm like, holy crap. But I remember The Shining was the one movie we watched over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved the nuances in it. It wasn't, right, Stephen King hates it because it took away like the supernatural side of everything. And Stanley Kubrick whittled it down and narrowed it down and focused it in on a drunk guy and experiencing and killing his family and stuff. And she's like, just pay attention to it. Learn what they're doing and how they talk and stuff. And it was like even the stuff where, like, most horror films, you get nudity in it and stuff. My mother never covered my eyes because she's like, this is stuff you're going to see. Because I told her at a very young age, I got very lucky to know what I wanted to do and know my destiny early on. I told her I wanted to write. She said, okay, fine, start writing. I was like, cool. Well, she's like, before you even start writing, start reading. So she had me like read Mice and Men. Then she gave me Stephen King's It. I was like, that's crazy, thank you. But all that stuff, like literally, it wasn't even an instruction, but it showed you the right way to do stuff. So at 12 years old, I wrote my first little novella, and it was like 75 pages, and it was all about a floating cow skull that would fly around a campsite and kill people. So like, cool, my mom looked at it, and my mother was very blunt with me. And she's like, so that's pretty cool. She's like, it's really good. She's like, not the best, but it's pretty good. I was like, okay, cool. And she's an absolute sweetheart. And she's like, I want you to know something. I was like, what's that? She's like, because my mother was a writer. And she's like, you're never going to get away from criticism. There are people who are going to review your stuff. People are going to hate it. There are people that hate The Shining. There are people that hate Twilight Zone. It's like, embrace the criticism. That's why we've become very good friends with, like, Phantom Zone, who reviewed our stuff, comicbook.com, SaveHorror.com just did a review on Inheritance. They're an amazing brother and sister duo that are taking reviews and trying to do, as they say, save horror, because they see a big gap in horror and a big, almost a large amount of laziness in horror. But those are the three movies that, I'll take them back. The fourth one was Aliens. Yeah, it was Aliens. I love the first Alien, don't get me wrong, it's great, but something about James Cameron's Alien is incredible because dudes with big-ass guns and a girl with a big steady camera gun, big pulse rifles, everything, couldn't stop these things. I'm like, that's terrifying. Holy crap. It's the same thing with, like, Return of the Living Dead, and James hates Return of the Living Dead. I'm like, we're going to make you watch one day and shit. I remember watching Return of the Living Dead with my mother. It terrified me because it said the opening frame of, like, everything in this is real. I was like, going to die of zombies. But my mother was like, well, why are the zombies terrifying to you? I'm like, because they try to eat your brain. She's like, why else? I never clued into me. It was like a couple of years later when I finally, like, would watch it again, because there's a while that as a young kid and even like an early teenager, I wouldn't watch it because it was that movie that terrified me. it finally clued in that the zombies could not be killed. Nothing you could do could stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Chop it up, it still kept moving. I was just like, wait a second, holy crap! And that same principle is what we designed the main villain in Inheritance to be, which was an unstoppable thing. You have no idea how to stop it. In the new series, you'll see how bad the people in the 1950s, being when she was young, her father and her brothers and sisters, and the priests, how much a toll it took on them in order to try to stop this family demon. Something about that is more terrifying. And one of my favorite horror movies of recent times, second only to Cabin in the Woods. I think it's Cabin in the Woods. That horror comedy is awesome.
It's
With a
great.
unicorn in it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. Was The Conjuring. Was because it took away seeing creatures. I mean, you saw it like twice in the entire film towards the end of it. But it built so much tension that you're just like, huh, I hate this. Holy crap. Let's keep going. That's the stuff we're doing with Inheritance, is to build panels of like images that slowly keep your attention on it really slow, because the wide panels in Inheritance, they slow you down because you're looking at a large image. So you're looking at it and then you go to the next, so you go to the next. But when you get to the page where it's rapid fire like panels, then you start to speed up. Too many horror films these days are like rapid fire, and they do the whole thing in like, for lack of a better term, it's like having sex and finishing in 2 minutes. You're like, what was that? You don't enjoy any of it. And that's such a true analogy for a lot of horror films these days, where they jump scare you or they false scare you within the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, that tension you've built, because you're like, oh, I'm going to watch a horror movie now, this is going to be crazy. You're like, you're scared, and then bam. It's not real. Your brain's been alleviated of that tension, and then you have to spend the next 30, 40 minutes trying to get yourself back into the mode of, I'm going to be scared.
What an analogy.
It just
really works.
Terrible. It does. It's like so you're having sex and somebody dumps cold water on you, and you're like, thanks, jerk. That's just what I wanted to run. Like, that's my biggest thing, is like in a horror movie or a horror video game in comics, where you're like, okay, something scary about to happen. Like you get that long tracking shot with a man or a woman in the frame, and they're walking towards something, and you're like, oh God, please don't let something come out. And then it's one of their friends.
Or a cat.
You're like, really? Of all the endless things you could do, you chose the easiest route of like, oh, it's a friend, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually if I'm watching an indie horror film. That's when I'll go click. That's why I like Convergence. That's why I like all these indie films that are from friends, and then people I've met at other festivals and stuff. I mean, I've seen a couple films that were at Cannes that were amazing. Like everybody is raving about the Babadook. And I was like, this is going to be scary. I'm in Babadook going, oh my God, this is terrible.
Neil loved it.
I like it, but I don't think it's scary at all.
He fell asleep during the climax of the movie, but he loved it.
I didn't say
he did
I
a review of it after. He's like, I thought it was so good.
I never
Neil,
said I
you didn't
loved
even
it.
see the biggest part of the movie. It sucked. That movie was terrible.
It was
William
terrible.
Friedkin was like, the scariest movie. The guy who created The Exorcist, scariest movie ever. Stephen King, scariest movie ever. No. Are you getting paid to say that? Because it wasn't.
And that's why I feel a lot of reviewers are these days, is people being paid to review stuff. Oh my God, they had an interesting concept, which was that the Babadook would come from a book, and that it would connect. It was like, that's kind of cool. But as soon as it started going Babadook, because like, that's your calling sign for scary? Like, that's like really crappy slam poetry. Like, for the love of God. And then the worst part, the absolute worst part, and it took me right out of the movie. I'm sitting next to my buddy Andy Cadell, And we're watching it, and they used like Tyrannosaurus Rex sounds from the 80s movies as the creature screamed. Like, didn't I hear this in an 80s movie? He was like, yes, you did. I'm like, movie's done. And I didn't walk out to my buddy Andy, like, let's watch it. And then what's worse is, like, the next day, Andy's like, let's watch The Conjuring, because he'd never seen The Conjuring. And he's like, because the movie's like, shit, the Babadook stole everything from The Conjuring. Holy crap. Holy crap. I mean, that's not, I don't know if they did it or not, but all I know is that the exercise and patience and not doing shaky camera on everything.
Yeah.
And keeping these long, steady takes, that stuff builds tension. It's like, as my destroy my street cred, but one of the most effective ways of doing that was M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. And it was the movie my mother watched over and over and over again in the months preceding her death. But there's just something about that movie was terrifying. And it's when they're all like, they have the wooden boards coming up and stuff, and they're bordering, they're barricading themselves into the house. You have no idea what's outside, but it's building tension to you. And you're just like, I want to see what's outside. And then people are running by the wooden slats, and you just see glimmers of them. I'm like, that's creepy. That's insanely creepy. There's just sounds that directed you and stuff. And you're like, whoa. But when people do terrible, terrible, terrible horror films, it just ruins it for me. It's like, I'm a firm believer that people need to start calling crap.
We agree with that on the show because as talked to Drew last week, Convergence, I really loved that movie. I thought it was great, and everyone should check out that interview last week. And that's how James and got connected to the show. But we get a lot of screeners, and honestly, a lot of them are hard to get through. Sometimes we don't get through them. But when you get one that's like really good, like when we get Convergence, like wow, this is really good, and it does make you appreciate the movie more.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what like when Drew first showed me Convergence a while back. So okay, like there's a different kind of horror film. I'm like, don't worry, let me just watch it. And I watched it and I'm like, he took horror and did something different. Which is what we did with Inheritance. I called Drew, I'm like, dude, that was really good. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Like, you're definitely going to get people that will not like it. People that are definitely into slashers and, like, want the cheap jump scares aren't going to like it. But the people that are, like, true aficionados of horror, those are the people that, like, engage with it. I mean, we've been to film festivals, both James and I, we've been to Comic-Cons, where you see people and they come up and go, here's my art, take a look at it. We had one guy who had a booth, was like 3 booths down from us, and we're usually friends with all our people. We direct people to all like scattered comics, we direct them to them all the time. But this one guy, like, he had the biggest ego, and I'm like, I'm the greatest comic book artist and writer that's ever lived. And I'm like, cool, let's see your artwork. And he looked at it and it looked like clip art from like the 90s. And I'm like, so how much is, because James and I buy indie comics all the time. We leave Comic-Cons, usually we got $100 worth of indie comics. And they have to be good indie comics for us to put money on it and stuff. So this guy, like, the average book sells between $2.99 and $4.99 at a con. And we sell Inheritance at $5, we sell it all the time. This guy was selling a 15-page book that's 10 pages shorter than Inheritance for $25.
Wow.
And he sold nothing. And he's like, that's because nobody appreciates it. I'm like, no, you've outpriced your consumers because people are going to cons to buy a lot of stuff. They're not there just to buy one thing, so they're not going to blow their whole load on one thing. And 2, your art's bad. But those are the people you're like, eventually they'll figure it out. We're not out to try to make anybody feel bad. But at the same point, the digital technology has created a big problem in both comics, film, and writing, where everybody these days is now a writer, is now a filmmaker, and is now a comic book creator. And you're like, oh, so it's filling and flooding the markets with, for lack of a better term, crap. Because the majority of it is people creating, and they're just throwing stuff down, and they're like, oh, someone will love this, and they're just shoot it out there so that the rest of the people that are doing phenomenally well at what we do have to fight through a sea of minutia to get to the top. Because you're having to we deal with this when we talk to potential cons. We deal with it when we talk to interviewers and stuff. Everybody's like, cool, great. But once we get them inheritance, once Drew gets some convergence, or once Matt gets an altar, or once anybody gets them something of quality, then it changes the tone of what everybody said, what everybody thinks. Because like you said, you go through a bunch of screeners and you get through stuff and you're like, ugh. And you don't want to go through it. You're like, why? Please. Like, it's the same thing. I'm perfectly fine with critiques, with criticism. I embrace it. I'm friends with a lot of the people that critique my stuff, good or bad. Like, it's a response. It's like the Wachowski brothers, or the Wachowskis that did The Matrix. They hired all the critics that panned their movies to do commentaries on all their movies. So they're like the massive collection of The Matrix. There's critics trashing the entire film, and they said, everybody should do it. Everybody should be engaged in this, because without them, we don't exist, and without us, they don't exist. So it's a give and take kind of system. But I think we all need to start getting to a point of accountability with the stuff that comes out, because it's like participation awards are everywhere now, where they're like, I participated, I should get an award. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. If you don't compete to a level where the Astronaut was at AOS this past year, and it was nominated for Best Director, Best Young Actor, Best Lead Actor, and we ended up getting that award for Best for Audience Choice Awards, which was given to us because of the audience's response to it. That being said, the people who watched the film in the festival decided the Astronaut didn't win. And I was like, why aren't you pissed? I'm like, well, I can't please everybody. If that reviewing panel hated those kind of films, the Astronaut would have never won. So I'm like, you take each up and down with some sort of relevance to how it fits. It's like creatives are like, I'm just going to go out and get everybody to like my movie or my comic or my novel. I'm like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It's like trying to take Inheritance as a movie, like shooting this thing as a movie, and going, okay, guys, we shot this amazing horror film. It's terrifying. We've got all these reviews saying people love it, and then going to the Hallmark Channel and going, would you like to show this movie? Chances are they're going to go no, because it's not their demographics.
No, you mentioned Twilight Zone a lot, and I would say there is kind of a connection between how Twilight Zone is presented and Inheritance. Is a lot of Twilight Zone episodes are parables for other topics, and same can be said with Inheritance for things that are meaningful to you. And but what was what's some of your favorite episodes of Twilight Zone?
Favorite episode of the Twilight Zone is The Shelter, which is amazing. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and Time Enough at Last. Those are my absolute favorite episodes, which my girlfriend Zara could tell you about because she's seen them over and over and over again. Something about like The Shelter, which was a bunch of friends at a dinner, and they're all sitting there. And the other Twilight Zone episode was, I just forgot it. All right. Where it's a bunch of friends hanging out at dinner, and they're celebrating a doctor's birthday party and stuff. They're singing and stuff, and it's back during the Cold War and stuff. And then all of a sudden, the radio starts to play, and the son of one of the party goers like, "Hey, Dad, I heard that they were talking about a nuclear bomb or it was an alien." And they're what? And so they go out there and listen, and they're like, "It is a nuclear bomb, and it's coming to the West Coast." And so everyone's, "Oh my God!" They run out to the streets, and the doctor, who's been building a bomb shelter, which they refer to in the opening scenes, takes his family down there. And then as this missile gets closer and closer, everybody loses their shit. And they go right back to the primal nature of who we are, which is kill and save yourself at all costs. So they break down the door of this bomb shelter. As they break it down, the radio comes back on and says, that was a test of the, this is a real thing. And you're just like, what? What? I mean, Serling did it so well. I mean, this is my favorite writer of all time. This guy suffered from so much post-traumatic stress because of World War II that he smoked like three packs of cigarettes a day. He was a constant insomniac, and in 1 year he wrote 75 screenplays because he couldn't sleep. And the majority of it was based off of his experiences where he watched his friends get killed while they invaded one of the Pacific Islands. Mm-hmm. And that he took it and turned it into the Twilight Zone. And that was his way of coping with it. And each one of the things, he always talked about, like, who mankind is. Because he watched people, like, the civil rights movement, and he watched people turn on people. And he's like, just for the color of our skin, we're going to destroy things. So I don't get it. So I don't get it. And he's one of the great writers of the world that was like, that confronted that stuff. And they did not, the television stations and the studios hated him for it. They would constantly tell him to change things. And they're like, no. He's like, everybody has a story. Everybody's story gets told. And the Monsters That Do on Maple Street was all about aliens turning on and off the lights of a town, or like a little street. And the people turn on each other, start killing each other, and the alien's like, see, it happens over and over and over again. You just turn the lights off, and mankind turns on itself. So, watching that from a very young age and understanding the idea of metaphor and allegory building into his stories, that's what we did with a lot of Inheritance. It's what I've done with a lot of my work, is that there's that relationship between a mother and a son. It's that somewhere out there right now, there's somebody who doesn't like their mom for some very specific reason. And when you look at Inheritance as a whole, everybody looks at it as it's a horror story, and that's exactly what it is. But beneath that metaphor, and beneath that is the metaphor and allegories of coming to terms with who you are in relations to your parents. Because Serling's father is explored in the first series, The Binding of Three. He never really gets to know his father because his father leaves. My father didn't leave. My father just worked so much. Mm-hmm. So intermixed into these horror stories, into this horror story, are the very real metaphors and allegories of people confronting who they are and confronting who they are in relation to their parents, and that ever-evolving story, that ever-evolving relationship, because it evolves every single day. My dad and I's relationship constantly changes. But if you literally just, I don't know, it's exceedingly hard to describe how much the Twilight Zone impacted me, because I own every single one of the episodes on DVD. It's just one of my absolute favorite things, but it showcased me at a very young age how to do this properly. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer that old school filmmaking, old school writing, old school comics still have the right idea. You may evolve technology, evolve how things are done, but you can't lose reality with what this all started as. This all started storytelling. Yeah. In its purest form, started around a campfire of parents telling their young, or the youth, or whatever it was, stories and parables on how not to do the stupid stuff they did. It wasn't about the Yeti. It wasn't about the creature that was coming to kill everybody. That was a different way of going, don't poke the bear that's sleeping. He'll eat you. Don't poke it. But if they created a parable and they said, like, that snowman, he's a mythical creature, he'll kill you, he'll eat you, then chances are you're not going to go looking for a bear. But if you tell a young kid, like, see that little cuddly teddy bear over there? Don't poke it. It'll try to eat you. They're like, okay, cool. I'm going to go poke it. Half the kids. How many times did my mother tell me, don't jump your bike off that ramp? I still did, and I ended up with scraped elbows and stuff. I'm like, you're right. Just, if a parent or somebody tells somebody directly to their face, they're like, this is how you should be, this is how you should act, this is how all the stuff should apply to your life, it turns people off instantaneously. But if people are entertained and terrified first and foremost, and they can actually deride and actually come to their own assumptions from the story itself as to what works in their life, that's when it works. And that's why the Twilight Zone was so absolutely successful. Because it took that and it just blew it out of the water. That's why it's so ahead of its time, and nobody's been able to replicate it. Because everybody these days are afraid of confronting the realities of each other. Everybody is. Everybody's terrified of it. I'm like, Rod Serling's like, the only way we're going to fix this is if we all just start looking at it and just facing it, facing the horrors of ourselves. Because the most terrifying person is not the person that's in the Middle East trying to kill you. It's the person that you will become if the world ends and what you will do to survive. And that's ultimately what the Twilight Zone, the majority of their episodes are about. So you take mankind's inhumanity to man, and I took that and I applied that to inheritance and our inhumanity to our parents when we think they're wrong, and how far you'll take that in relations to that whole relationship. One of the things that I learned with my dad and I learned with my mother was how far I would take this relationship and how far I would push my own father away. And I'm like, at a certain point, it's like I didn't have really that much of a relationship with my dad until after my mom died. Because then I was like, well, I don't have my mother, so I got to start talking to my dad. And talking to my dad over like the next 3 years after that, I began to realize how much he sacrificed, what he did in order for us to kind of live and stuff. So that resentment kind of went away slowly. But that's the thing that I think films, video games, especially now, movies that aren't just entertainment, they're actually metaphors and allegories. They're allegorical statements and declarative statements buried beneath entertainment that affects people.
Those are the ones that last the longest, even if it's not, like you said, if it's under the surface. Those are the ones that resonate with people the most, and sometimes they don't even know why.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm trying to think of this way. This doesn't make any sense. When I was in a festival at Cannes, I got a chance to see The Sea of Trees by Gus Van Sant. And we went into the screening knowing full well that the critic screening, it was booed. Absolutely booed. But when I went in there, my producer, the astronaut, John Hollis, who has both gone through horrible things like I have, we watched it, and there's a moment in it where we started bawling. And you're just like, holy crap. And you realize that a lot of reviewers, whether or not they're being paid to vote things down or vote things up, I don't know. But a lot of people are so caught up they don't want to face themselves. And that's what The Sea of Trees did so brilliantly. Was the reviewers, they're like, I got to make money, I got to review stuff, it's got to be awesome, it's got to be perfect on every level. While the reader, who we're actually targeting, who I target, who Gus Van Sant targeted, he didn't make the movies for the reviewers. He made it for the fans. And those people engaged in it. And our entire screening was bawling. And then I got a standing ovation. And then that night you're reading in the trades that one of the worst movies ever made. I'm like, did you guys even watch the same movie? It's like, because that was an amazing story of a husband and wife getting back together. And then the husband was going to the Akagori forest in Japan to kill himself. And I'm just like, Jesus. It's just, it does two things. This kind of material, well, it either forces people to confront the stuff they don't want to confront and they won't touch it. Or it opens people up that want to engage in it. And they want to experience it. And they want that connection to somebody else that they can recognize and they can identify with. Because that's ultimately what we want as humans. We want somebody to identify with us, to not be alone, to not like feel like this massive planet. I'm going to steal from Joe Rogan here, where he's like you're just a monkey on a planet that you're a monkey on an organic spaceship flying through space. And when you think about it like that, the world seems massive, and people want the connection to each other because storytelling again started around campfires, where everybody was sitting shoulder to shoulder, and everybody was telling stories. You're listening to the elders talk about these great things, and it's connecting because you're looking at somebody who's lived a life already, and you're about to start your life. And that's like the stuff that like my favorite novel ever is of Mice and Men, because it's again it goes right for the core of somebody, and it connects. Steinbeck just was like, let's go right at somebody. Let's get somebody who's completely innocent, who doesn't understand how the world works, and give him a brother who cares for him, but is constantly frustrated with him. So by the time you get to the end of that book, and Lenny, who's this mentally challenged guy in the entire book, who just wants to pet animals, pet bunnies, and petting the rabbits and stuff on this farm that they're trying to get. After he is petting one of the farmer's wives, he's petting her hair because it's really pretty and stuff. And she's like, hey, don't pet so hard. And he freaks out because he thinks he's going to get in trouble, and he breaks her neck on accident. So then he bolts. And then George, his caretaker, like almost like his brother, tracks him down, knows full well that Lenny's not going to understand what's happening because they're going to catch him. Curly, who the husband of the wife he killed, is going to come and beat him to death. So Lenny's going to be met with a horrible end. And George ends up killing him. He sits there and tells him, he's like, look at those rabbits. And he starts describing the rabbit farm they're going to have, and then he kills him. I remember reading that, and I asked my mother, I was like, what the hell happened at the end? I was like, I think it was like 13, 14. And she was like, it's a mercy killing. And then she explained it. And I was like, holy crap. Because as a kid, I was like, that's kind of weird. Why did they just kill him? They could have just ran away. But again, it's just the greatest stuff that we all connect to. I mean, look at it. Look at this. Army of Darkness and Evil Dead. Why are they so wildly popular? A, it's because of their comedy. That's obviously apparent. But it's because Ash is an everyday dude. he's kind of a bumbling idiot. He works at a store. He works at like S-Mart. So you're immediately like, I like that guy. I connect to him. I know exactly who he is. But if it was a billionaire who you have no idea who they are, you've never been in those shoes, you can't connect to them. And you're just like, oh, great. Well, those are the stories I told, and I'm going to continue to tell, are the things that connect to people.
Yeah. This, about Ash too. I said this before. Of all the horror movies, that have a lot of that have all the sequels and stuff, that's the only one where the most memorable character is the hero. It's like, Friday the 13th is Jason and Freddy and all these, but those movies, it's about Ash, and I think it's the only one.
Well, it's like I remember in high school, they were given an alternative course to English. I was an advanced place in English all the way through middle school and all the way in high school and stuff. And I'm like, I want to do something different. So they had a class called Myths and Monsters. Have you guys ever heard of the story of Beowulf?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but there was a compendium release called Grendel.
Yeah.
And it was the exact opposite of Beowulf. So you get Beowulf as this Nordic man who's going to kill this creature, and it's going to be, we're going to kill him, we're going to save him, eat everybody, we're going to decimate him. Then you get to Grendel, and you realize Grendel's not a creep. He's not a vicious creature. He's just a deformed thing that is just trying to get people to leave him alone. And so all of a sudden you go from like let's kill it. He's a crazy creature. He's eating people to, holy shit, that guy is, I feel bad for him. I feel totally bad for this guy. And it just changed exactly how I thought of literature, where everybody wants that heroic journey and stuff. I'm like, great, heroic journeys are perfect. The Joseph Campbell model of like the hero's journey, hero in the 1,000 faces, that stuff's perfect. That stuff works. That stuff brought us Star Wars, for lack of a better term. But if you
It literally did, though, because Lucas pulled stuff from Joseph Campbell for Star Wars.
Exactly. Joseph Campbell even said that George Lucas was his best student.
Mm-hmm.
He's
The guy was amazing.
He's like, this guy does some incredible stuff. But at the same time, as as the years get on, even Joseph Campbell said, there will come a time where my structures will become outdated and people will begin to build their new ones, because everything evolves. And you're starting to see like anti-heroes coming out, and guys that are not perfect. We're getting away from like the 1950s Hollywood glamour, where like men did all these things and it was perfect, and the women were relegated to these roles and stuff. And you're starting to see women come out and create some amazing work, and they're starting to show men, hey, you don't necessarily think you own everything. It's crazy how far and how fast everything is changing. And it's changing for great things, and it's going to be amazing as it keeps going, but that's also doing some bad things. It's like, please stop making terrible movies. But then again, I thought I was sick of terrible movies until I saw Sharknado. I was like, not anymore, I'm not. You keep making me Sharknadoes. I'll keep watching them. But I mean, even that, it's so self-aware. But something like Evil Dead, I love it. Love Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness, love it. The new show, I'm ambivalent towards it. I don't know why. I just don't. I've watched like 4 of the episodes, and I'm like, yeah, something about it is different than Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 2. But it just, what they did with their horror that's what Return of the Living Dead did really well, which was, I mean, Evil Dead is more slapstick. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's punctuated with horror every once in a while. But what Return of the Living Dead did so damn well was it was horror, and the comedy was derived out of those horrible situations.
Yeah, something we talked about on the show. Sometimes it's hard to do horror comedy, and I think for the most part, the most successful ones are the horror works as real horror. If you play the horror up too silly, I don't think it works.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a delicate balance. Mm-hmm. And I've tried comedy before. I'm a member of the director's unit of the Actors Studio in Los Angeles. And, Lou Antonio is a guy who's like in his 80s. He's teaching these classes and stuff to all these directors. That guy's brutal. He's like damn brutal. And he's like, you're here to try out stuff. So I'm like, cool. So I never tried a comedy. So they gave us a scene for all of us to direct. So I was like, I'm going to try this as a comedy. And I crashed and burned. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do comedy. And he's like, was it funny? I'm like, no. He's like, damn right it wasn't. Do it again. So I'm like, dude, there's a guy who's like works with like some of the top golden age actors like James Dean. This guy, and he's like, do it again. I'm like, I have no idea what to do. I've never directed comedy. He's like, you never directed comedy? I'm like, no. So well, then you got some balls. So like, that's awesome, dude. So you're here to learn this stuff and play with it and stuff. But they did a couple of days where they're doing like horror plays, and I can't remember the plays. And he's explaining the horror. He's like, it's not the killer coming at you. He's like, it's the tension. But then, and the same thing with comedy. When I was finishing up with my scene, and they were talking to me, and there's other directors in there who are like in their 60s who have directed comedies back in the 60s that are hilarious. And they're like, what you tried to go for was the comedy. And he said, make him laugh. And that doesn't work because it stops an actor dead in their tracks. Because I had no idea how to direct a comedy. I'm like, just try to make him laugh, make it funny. That was terrible directing. But because I've predominantly done drama and horror my entire life. And the comedy is derived out of the moments. And then you build the moments so much through rehearsals that by the time you get the camera rolling, the comedy strikes. Because they figure out what's happening in the scene, and then they're free to allow the comedy to kind of bubble up to the surface. And that's like Cabin in the Woods. I loved that movie. Because it was just, of course, it was Joss Whedon, but I mean, it was just hilarious. Where the guy's like, I want to see Merman, and the Merman never happens. Then the Merman shows up.
Yeah.
They don't have to say anything. They don't say, "Oh my God, it's the Merman." It's just like, that guy's about to be eaten by the fucking thing he wanted to watch people die. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
You can do a comedy right, and it's an incredibly difficult task. I got mad respect for you. Because I was like, I'll never direct a comedy. I tried it, and like, good. When you watch some of these movies, like the guy who's directing Ghostbusters, Paul Feig, the guy's hilarious. His movies are hilarious. They did The Heat, Bridesmaids, all that stuff makes you laugh. I'm like, you're speaking Greek to me. I have no idea how you would all make people laugh. Like, I could scare you, but I can't. I can give you funny situations, but I can't outright make everybody like break out in an entire theater crying from laughter.
Uh-huh. So,
But it's good.
Okay, finish what you're saying.
No, I was done actually.
Oh, all right. Well, I just want to let. How do people find Inheritance?
You can find Inheritance at outpouringcomics.com. We're also on drivethroughcomics.com. You just search Inheritance on there. Fastest way to find us is on outpouringcomics.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/inheritnovel and at facebook.com/inheritance comic book.
And how do they find you? Not like come to your house and look for you, but how do they find you online?
So, that's funny too. My website, Schumacher3, that's the number 3.com, will be up within the next month as it's being redesigned. Currently, they can find me on IMDb, where they can just Google me. If you want to Facebook stalk me, you can totally find me on Facebook at James Schumacher. But I'm predominantly found through Outpouring and our Twitter accounts.
Yeah, and if you're on my Facebook, I've got a bunch of I've tagged them a bunch of times, so you can just click on that and find them.
Yes, you can come stalk me. Come knock on my window while I'm sleeping and go, "I see nice looking furniture you got there, dude."
That's how we're doing the show right now.
If you look close, there's 6 eyes right at your window.
Sweet. I thought that was my weird neighbor again. Can I just knock on the door and go, "Hey, what's up? Are you famous yet? So I can like sell your body to like black markets." That's the one thing one of my friends said. He's like, if you're unworthy and famous, dude, it was great. He's like, now I want you to know that when you become famous, all these videos I've taken of you while you're drunk in these pictures, I'm going to sell the shit out of this. I was like, by all means, you have at it, dude. He's like, cool. That guy is Andy, and his wife's like, "Oh, I've got plenty of videos of you too. Don't worry. We'll see the light of day here pretty soon." I'm like, jerks. But these are my friends. There's a term I tell everybody. I'm like, these are my assholes, because we're all sarcastic. Like brutally sarcastic with each other. Like, these are my peeps. Love them or hate them.
We want to thank you for
best friends to have.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Want to thank you for coming on. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. This has been an awesome interview. This has been great. How long has this been going?
2 hours.
Wow.
But it's been
That was
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's been fantastic.
I know when I drew on last week, the publicist set it up, and they told me you have 15 minutes, and it was like it was an hour later, and I was like, oh, I think we went over the time limit, but.
like, sorry, Drew. Tell your publicist sorry. Damn.
But you beat Drew's record. So.
Say what?
You've doubled Drew's time.
Score. I'm gonna brag some now. There's so much for your hour, buddy.
Excellent. So we'll be back here shortly, and it was great talking to James, and I hope to have him back sometime.
Yeah, real pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. This is Eileen Dietz talking to you from Hollywood, California, from the monastery in which I live. It's a wonderful day for an exorcism. And I'm talking to you from Without a Head Radio. Enjoy the interview. You never know what you can find out. Your mother sucks cock in hell.